Press the bell icon on YouTube and don't miss another update.
In the clutter of all of the day's news, one thing that may get lost is the real meaning of the urban body elections in Kashmir. You might see in some newspapers a small story, a large story. After all, these are local body elections. Who cares? But hidden in this message, hidden in these results, behind the clutter is the really sad story of how things have gotten worse in Kashmir over the past 4 years. In fact, if you look back on the BJP government's record over the past 4 years, one of the biggest failures and setbacks has been in Kashmir. Kashmir today looks much worse than it did in 2004. And these elections are the latest evidence in case any evidence was needed, because much more than any count of the number of people killed or arrested or terrorists put away, you have a situation where at least 4 districts, 4 regions have less than 5% voting in the valley. 78 seats, that's more than 10% of all seats, wards, have been elected uncontested. The other person, a rival, did not even come up against one candidate. In most cases, it was the BJP's candidate. This is not the way democratic process should function, and this is evidence, if any was needed, that democratic process in Kashmir is broken. I think it is necessary for the Modi government to do introspection on this. They did try a bold idea, and I had then welcomed it as a bold idea, of having a partnership with Mufti Muhammad Saeed's PDP, because these were 2 parties of contrasting ideologies, but also these were 2 parties of different regions of Kashmir. BJP primarily or predominantly of the Jammu region and PDP of the valley. So it was much better that a valley party and a Jammu party should come together, and a party predominantly with Muslim vote and the Hindu vote respectively should come together and form a government. But it needed big-heartedness to run that government. For some time, I'd say that Mufti Saab showed that big large-heartedness, and the centre went along with him. But since he fell sick and he declined, it does look like the BJP's basic instinct, first of all, the PDP suddenly did not have a leader of stature, and second, the BJP's basic ideological instinct took over. And what happens when that takes over? That becomes disrespectful of the special status that Kashmir has under India's constitution. Now the fact is, you may like it, you may not like it, but that is today the factual situation. When you signed the deal with PDP to participate in the government, it was a given that you were accepting that status. There was no deal about changing that status. So I would think that BJP failed to keep its instinct in control. It was also driven by the vested interest of its election prospects in Jammu region, because unless you are tough in the valley, how do you win in Jammu? And then the Katwa rape happened, and then the tensions between the Mufti government or Mufti's party and BJP became even more pronounced. At the end of which the government was gone. Now we have President's rule, which is really not the script that India wanted written in 2014. You have President's rule, you have this kind of election at the local bodies level. So what will you expect when you have elections the next time in the entire state? And remember, Kashmir now has a Lok Sabha constituency that has gone without a by-election for the longest time. So this tells you that military situation matters, but that's not the main story. Military is strong enough to handle that situation. The real story is, how are things working on the ground? Things on the ground are broken. If the government doesn't acknowledge it, government is being short-sighted. If the government is letting things drift because it helps them in national elections, because there is then a straight calculation of Kashmiri Muslims as terrorists linked with Pakistanis, with ISI, Al Qaeda, etc., etc., etc. It might work to drive up some emotion to get some votes, but it is very counterproductive and national interest is being hurt in Kashmir. So it's important. Unfortunately, our politics doesn't have so many statesmen. There really is nobody in any party right now, because our politics has now become so take no prisoners that nobody would be willing to forget sacrificing political interest for national interest, or even avoiding the temptation of exploiting a situation at the cost of national interest for politics. And Kashmir right now is a victim of that. It is in a very bad state. It's time that all parties, not just the central government, but all parties start worrying about Kashmir, but central government most of all, because 6 months from now, 7 months from now, when the nation starts assessing their performance over the 5 years, then the state of Kashmir will be a very important part. So that is the main thing. It may not make headlines, but if it doesn't make the big headlines tomorrow, it tells you what exactly is wrong with us right now, that we have such a tragedy, such a loss of control and such a loss of democratic process taking place in one of our most crucial border states, and yet we don't seem to be bothered. So I do not believe that today we should be talking about anything else. Much else has happened in Gujarat. There is an ongoing agitation in Sabrimala, but really today reflect on what state Kashmir is in. If in 3 districts, 3 big towns of the valley, especially in Anantnag, in South Kashmir, voting percentages are below 5. It is a vote of no confidence in the political management of Kashmir situation.